Lego Star Wars Mechs. I love them, the community doesn't. So of course I had to pick up the latest and arguably greatest of the series yet, and its DLC. And I say arguably the greatest because people actually like the Luke Skywalker mech. Because instead of just being an upscaled version of the character, like the mechs of the first wave, he's kind of like a transformer of his iconic vehicle. And that got me thinking, if the mechs of the first wave were also these vehicle mashups, what would they look like? And how would they be received? Let's find out. As I said before, these mechs didn't go down very well. However, the universal favourite was definitely this Boba Fett one. It just felt the most substantial, with its high piece count, jetpack add-on, and exclusive arm-printed figure. So let's turn this mech into Boba's iconic ship, the Slave One, or the Fire Spray, or the Boba Fett starship. It doesn't really matter, it's the same hunk of metal. Now these are going to be a little bit different from my current mechs because they're not fully custom. So these legs and feet are completely unchanged from the official set, but it's the central body piece where everything changes. Now I'm not going to be using this big pre-molded piece that is used in all the Star Wars mechs, nor will I be using the pre-molded piece that I use in most of my custom mechs. These bodies are just going to be built out of regular bricks. You can see I've used the same windscreen that's used on the Slave One microfighter, although I was tempted to just slap a microfighter onto the front of the mech, but then I looked it up online and a lot of people had already did that, so I had to go a bit more custom. You can see I've used these big green rounded pieces from the Slave One playset. On the side here is where the wings are supposed to go, but for this big boy, that's where the arms are going to end up. I'm not that good at technical details. Now, of course, I did need to include the big dark red turtle shell that sits on the back of the Slave One. Okay, I know that's not what it's called, but I just do not care to look it up. I also needed to attach something onto those front hinge plates. That, of course, being the main front section that looks a little bit inappropriate when you stick it between two legs. Anyway, swiftly moving on, you can see I've finished the back of the turtle shell and left some gaps at either side where we will attach the wings, which I think look really cool and you can't even tell that they're technically in the wrong place. You can also see the vast amounts of detail I've put onto the back of this mech to take the giant grey wall that was there before and give it a little bit more life. All that's missing now is a pair of guns, and, well, a pair of guns. I'm obsessed with how this came out. I think it looks really cool. I think the scale is just right where the arms and legs don't seem too big, and every single major feature of the Slave One is there. No, I didn't get the wings to move like they do in the sets. Come on, I'm not that good, and you know my history with Technic. This should work now. 3, 2, 1. Oh my goodness. Oh no. And there we have it, the character mech turned into the vehicle. I think if this was the Boba Fett mech that released last year, it would, one, be triple the price, and as well as being an 18+ set, because this thing doesn't hold well together at all. I think it would have been much better received by the general LEGO Star Wars community. Now, whilst the Boba Fett was the most loved, I think it's fair to say the Vader one was the most hated. Because, let's be honest, it's kind of just a dull mech. There's nothing interesting going on here at all. Like, I've literally got nothing else to add to the intro, it's just a boring hunk of junk. So let's overhaul this hunk of junk into a sleek TIE Advanced. Because let's be honest, we can hardly make it worse. Now, just like the Boba mech, I'm keeping both the feet and the legs the exact same way that they appear in the set, because unless you're counting landing gear, these ships don't contain legs or feet. Obviously. Of course, in between the legs, I'm starting to build the base that the TIE Advance will sit on top of. Now, you can probably see that it goes quite far back, and that's for quite an important reason. The TIE Advanced is both very wide and very long, so gravity was definitely going to be my biggest opponent here. Now I'm starting to form the cockpit using this piece from the Mando's N1 set, with old Anakin sitting front and center in the middle. And I need to apologise to Vader here, because his cape is gonna need an Iron Man. No, not you! Going to the back side, you can see I'm just filling it out, creating some kind of unintentional detail with some wedge plates, as well as generally creating that round shape. You can start to see the ball joints where the arms are going to end up, and you can kind of see the whole thing start to come together. And it's at this point where I think to myself, why didn't you just use the 4+ piece? But there was no time to think about that. I had to add the roof, as well as put some details on the backside. Those are stud shooters that you see on the top there. I'm not making the mech playable, I've just got so many of these damn things I need to put them somewhere. I then added the most iconic part, the windscreen. It's just a shame that that windscreen reflects every single light that I point at it, meaning you can hardly see Vader. I of course added the round engine on the back, as well as some square engines on the front that I kinda just used for detail from this car. The arms again are almost taken directly from the set. I chose to keep the weapon on this one, mainly just because it can then fight the Luke one, and that's cool. Yes, I'm a child, I know. I did slightly update the arms. I added some jumper tiles, which meant I could therefore put on the wings, to then create the final look. And I'm really happy with this. I did at one point have the wings on the sides of the actual TIE Interceptor like they actually are, and then the arms were on the outside of the wings, but it just ended up being way too wide and looked a bit weird, so this is a great compromise. And I think, especially compared to the original Vader mech, this is a massive upgrade, and just saying, this one would kick the ass of the Luke mech. Now, the final mech I had to turn into a vehicle was the humble Stormtrooper. But looking into it, Stormtroopers don't really have a vehicle. And I know what you might be thinking, Stormtroopers have loads of vehicles. But no! TIE fighters have TIE pilots, speeder bikes have scout troopers, AT-ATs, AT-STs, Star Destroyers, they don't fit for any of them. Oh my god, I've just had a brainwave. Okay, you've heard it twice, but I'm gonna say it again. We are starting with the regular legs from the set. But we're gonna mix it up a little bit because we're gonna do something that I've never done before. I'm gonna add a second pair of legs to this mech. This one's gonna be a little bit different. Now, I know you want to know what type of vehicle am I doing. Put your predictions in the comments because I don't think you're gonna get it. Is it gonna be like a Star Destroyer that's just incredibly long and needs that support? Maybe I've just said screw it and I'm doing a Death Star. Although I wouldn't put it past me, that could very much be coming up in the future. Although I've gone a little bit simpler, and maybe less mechanical than you'd have thought. It's time to
do the do.
And I know what you may be thinking, it's not a Stormtrooper, it's a Sandtrooper, but it's close enough and I couldn't think of anything else. Yes, I am indeed doing a Doback mech, although the Doback will not be the pilot. There will be a Stormtrooper, which will be on top of the Doback, which will be on top of the legs. I've got some white parts wrapping around the top of the Doback to actually start to create some kind of body, and of course we can't leave those studded, so I've tiled them up with some light grey as a nice accent colour. I've also included the Imperial logo tile from the official set, again just to keep it all in theme together. You can also see that I've attached some reins to the front of the Doback, and yes, I know they should be brown, but it didn't fit my colour scheme, okay? Anyway, you can see I added some white bars for a bit more detail, as well as some sockets where the arms are going to go. Yes, the Doback has arms on the mech, even though it doesn't physically. Just don't question it. Look at it. How can you say no to those arms? I've also added some shields to give the Doback a little bit of protection on the front and back, which I guess is more than nothing. As well, at the very top there is a seat and a control pad, because that's where the Stormtrooper sits, right at the top, next to two giant cannons heading out the front, as well as a little bit more detail on those shields. You'll also see when it spins around again, I did end up adding one of those chest pieces, because it felt wrong me doing 3 mechs in this video and not including it in any of them. But there you have it, one of my weirder ideas for a mech. I'll level with you there. But with the Stormtrooper, outside of the mech itself, I really couldn't think of another vehicle that Stormtroopers operate. Hang on a minute, I've just thought of the best idea ever. Or it could be the worst. You'll have to find out next time.